Well, this story's gonna be a bit rough. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. YouTube isn't gonna like this episode. I'm gonna have to use some clever language to get around topics YouTube considers too sensitive. They also don't like me criticizing China, so help me out by leaving a honeypot emoji in the comments below in honor of everyone's favorite Chinese dictator and to show YouTube's algorithm that we have engagement, which helps the show. And now, on with what might be the most gruesome story I've ever covered. On May 8th, 2024, Liu Shuaiyu, a 28-year-old medical grad student in China, plummeted to his death from the 15th floor of his school dormitory, just weeks before his graduation. At the time, his death was immediately ruled as self-unaliving by local authorities. But his parents weren't buying it. Something was off. They sensed that there was more to the story than what they were being told, and so they started digging into the matter. What they found shocked them. Luo's parents believed their son was killed as part of a cover-up conspiracy. To see why, let's start from the beginning. Luo studied at Xiangya School of Medicine in Central South University and interned at a hospital affiliated with the prestigious Xiangya Second Hospital's kidney transplant department. After he died, his parents checked out his dorm room and found indications of a fight, including broken glasses on his bed, 2 buttons missing from his shirt, and bloodstains. Naturally, they wanted more information, but they were told that rooftop surveillance mysteriously wasn't working around the time of Luo's death. The authorities' response to his unaliving was especially suspicious. Shortly after his death, the hospital requested to the police that Luo's family sign agreements acknowledging his death was self-unaliving, even though no official investigation had taken place. On top of that, autopsies were discouraged. You know, like they do in that show, The First 48, where instead of looking for missing persons, detectives immediately rule it an unaliving and pressure their families to go along with it. Left with little choice, Luo's parents agreed that their son self-alived himself in order to get his electronic materials, which, according to state-run media, public security returned without modifying or deleting the information. Yeah, no, the electronics had been wiped. So, Luo's parents went on a quest to recover the lost data, and succeeded. It turns out Luo documented a lot, and I mean a lot, of damning information, pointing to his hospital engaging in money laundering, bribery, and organ harvesting. Organ harvesting in China? Now, where have I heard of that before, and covered it extensively for the past 13 years? Luo's parents believe that he was killed because of this. So what was on Luo's electronic devices? Where do I start? Luo's family found that the hospital paid more than 400,000 yuan, or about $55,000, to Luo in the form of labor compensation between 2021 and 2023. This raised a lot of eyebrows, with the Luo family saying, Liu Shuaiyu is just an intern. Why should the hospital pay him such a high amount of labor compensation? But Luo didn't keep the money, at least not all of it. The family also found WeChat records showing that the hospital transferred money to the head nurse of the kidney transplant department through nearly 100 students' WeChat accounts, including Luo's, totaling up to 40 million yuan. So there you have the money laundering. But it gets even worse from here. Data on Luo's electronics also showed that there were internal organ transplant meetings at the hospital concerning a child donor matching project. As part of this, according to recordings obtained by the Epoch Times, Luo was instructed to obtain 12 child organs, 6 from each sex, from 3 to 9-year-olds. But a person close to the Luo family told the Epoch Times that Luo had resisted complying with the hospital's demands to find child donor organs. His grades reportedly took a hit because of this. Well, never has a single story filled me with so much existential dread and so much hope for humanity at the same time. The Epoch Times also reported that Liu Shuaiyu told his father that the transplant department of the hospital referred to the emergency department as a morgue. Looking at this picture Luo took, it's easy to see what Luo means. So how did the hospital get its organs? Well, it's possible that forgery was involved. Just as an example, Luo's family reported that among the dozens of people in Luo's files, there was a girl donor who only left her father's contact information. They called the number, but the person who answered the phone had a different surname than the girl, which is not at all suspicious. Several of the hospital's staff were implicated in Luo's files, including the deputy director of the hospital's Department of Extracoronary Organ Transplantation, the attendant physician of the Department of Extracoronary Organ Transplantation, and Liu Xiangfeng, the deputy director for the hospital's hepatobiliary and pancreatic surgery, also known as the Demon Doctor, which sounds like a sweet DLC character in a Guilty Gear game. Liu was already under investigation, although Luo didn't know that. He was sentenced last year to 17 years in jail for taking bribes and performing a bunch of unnecessary operations. And I don't mean the type done on Lauren Sanchez. According to the state-run China Daily, in one case, he allegedly cut off a part of a patient's healthy intestines during an operation to treat an intestinal obstruction. He was also accused of diagnosing random lumps on patients' bodies as cancerous and pushed the patients to undergo chemotherapy. That's taking upselling to a whole new level. At this point, I feel like this doc is a less qualified surgeon than Dr. Dre, who's more of an MC than an MD. So, lots of reasons for Luo's parents to be suspicious about his demise. But if that's not enough, here's the cherry on top. There were also reports that Luo texted two of his colleagues just a day before his death saying, "If I don't go to work tomorrow, give the documents in my computer to the Discipline Inspection Commission." For obvious reasons, the case of Luo's supposed self-unaliving garnered a lot of attention, so much so that a Hunan Provincial Health Commission, Central South University, and the Changsha Municipal Public Security Bureau conducted a month-long joint investigation, reportedly beginning in November 2024. These organizations, by the way, all have some vested interest in Xiangya Second Hospital. Finally, on June 13th of this year, the group released the results of their investigation, and the results came as a shock to absolutely nobody. They concluded that Luo did unalive himself by jumping off a building, ruling out criminality. We investigated ourselves and found we did nothing wrong. They argued that there were no other shoe marks on the roof of the fall site, and that the room where he lived was not damaged and did not show any signs of fighting or dragging. They suggested that he unalived himself because he was under a lot of pressure to graduate and find employment and didn't submit his thesis on time. Chinese state-run media were quick to emphasize that Luo had very low scores, suggesting that Luo may have died because of academic stress. Well, of course he had low scores. He was being dinged for not retrieving enough illegal organs. Chinese authorities also insisted that there was nothing sketchy about the organ transplant data that the Luo family found on their son's electronic devices. Luo recorded 59 organ donations that he said had suspicious details attached. What did they have to say to that? All 50 donations were made with the consent of the family members. The signatures and seals were authentic and valid, and no violations were found. And if you have any questions about the 9 not mentioned, then shut up. On top of that, the investigation team said the alleged text messages to his two colleagues was false information. They also found classmates who said Luo's glasses broke a month before his death. So there we have it. No foul play and definitely no organ harvesting. Now, why would people be so insistent that there was no organ harvesting? Well, Xiangya Second Hospital has been accused of doing that before. In 2007, a US-based NGO investigating the persecution of Falun Gong blacklisted the same hospital and its doctors for allegedly harvesting organs from live Falun Gong practitioners. Luo's parents weren't too happy about the investigation results. They came out on Weibo saying this investigation is, at its core, them investigating themselves. They also said on social media that after submitting their evidence to China's health authorities, Luo's father was contacted with a settlement offer of more than $2 million, which he refused. That just doesn't look good. And so, of course, the Epoch Times reports that currently Weibo prohibits sharing Liu Shuaiyu's father's account and blocks comments. CCP is nothing if not predictable. It also reports that Luo's father and relatives' Douyin accounts were banned from live streaming, and that they were cut off midway through live streaming on another app. Interestingly enough, some Chinese articles talking about this story, including those published by state-run media, are no longer available. But the word keeps getting out anyway, and people on the Chinese internet are upset about what happened to Luo and his family. One user said, "It's us who need to say thanks. You and your family paid a heavy price for this to come to light today." Another said, "I hope a higher level department will intervene in this matter, not just the local area." But this is the kind of thing that higher-ups in the CCP would hate having looked into too deeply. After all, the CCP itself is encouraging an entire industry of forced organ harvesting. Luo's story is a tale all too familiar with people in China. Whistleblowing can be a dangerous business, especially if it involves powerful institutions with connections to authorities. And the CCP incentivizes this. That's why trying to get justice in a rigged system like China's doesn't work. People need to wake up and see that a society run by the CCP lets rigged systems flourish. So, like Luo, I'm on a mission to expose the shady happenings in China, but I need your help. Subscribe to my premium website, ChinaUncensored.tv. It's free of YouTube censorship, and you give us the support we need to keep making China Uncensored, despite YouTube censorship, demonetization, and secretly unsubscribing you. Just click on this button that's been on the screen. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.